Well, it was 61 years ago that 101 souls, men, women, and children, boarded a flight to Alaska. Flight 293 left McChord Air Base in Tacoma at 8:30 on June 3rd, 1963, but it never arrived. Something went wrong, and at some point the plane plunged and crashed into the Pacific Ocean. No survivors were ever located. Searchers only recovered minimal human remains and wreckage. The mystery of Flight 293 has never been solved, at least as far as the public knows. 17-year-old Army Private Bruce Barrowman from Renton was on that flight. His brother Greg joins me, along with historian Feliks Banel, who has spent years gathering information and is just now able to tell more of the story through his new podcast, Unsolved Histories. Welcome. Welcome to both of you. This is fascinating because I never heard about it, which is the point of the podcast. Who was on board 61 years ago, and where were they headed?
Well, it was 101 people. It was a military chartered flight, a civilian Northwest Airlines crew, stewardesses they called them in those days, pilot, co-pilot, engineer, like what any person could take a plane like that back in the 1960s. But these were all military passengers, 60 active duty Army and Air Force guys, federal employees, spouses, kids, and from all over the country, a real cross-section, like a sampling of America, Cold War America in 1963.
Headed to Alaska, to the base there.
Yeah, because it's the Cold War. It's where we have the dew line, waiting for the Soviets to send their bombers over the North Pole. These are the people who were manning the radar stations to let us know if there was a problem. This was the front lines of America's Cold War in 1963.
Important work.
Absolutely.
So what do we know happened, or do we know much at all?
Midway through the flight, the pilot radioed for permission to go from 14,000 feet to 18,000 feet. Air traffic control up in British Columbia said, oh, you can't go to 18,000, there's other traffic there, but you could go to 16,000. And the Flight 293 should have responded, like, okay, affirmative. Nothing. No distress call, nothing. Within a few minutes, the plane had gone from 14,000 feet and crashed into the Gulf of Alaska.
And then I would imagine there was a big search.
Yep, the Coast Guard was out searching. They collected about 1 or 2% of the total weight of the plane, just floating seat cushions, some luggage, some clothing. Some pieces of human tissue, which they lost track of. They couldn't do DNA testing 61 years ago, and they can't do it now because they can't find where the human tissue ended up.
So in some warehouse somewhere, probably.
Who knows? But the families were all told, and the federal government investigated and said it's inconclusive. We don't know what happened to Flight 293.
It's so disappointing not to have answers. Greg, you were 8, almost 9 years old. You had just said goodbye to your brother Bruce as he was getting on that plane. Tell me how you found out.
Well, in the morning, my family took my brother to the McChord Air Force Base, and we dropped him off and said our goodbyes. And after that, it was back to school. And when I got home from school, I turned on my favorite clown, J.P. Patches, right, and watched some cartoons. And then there was another station, that one, that posted an emergency broadcast on there that notified the general public that was watching that this plane had gone down, and they published the names as well as the...
Oh my.
Well, yeah. So I had to watch it a few times over before my family was preparing dinner at that time. And after about the third time, finally, because my brother's name on the Army order was down a ways, but I let my family know at that time, and then it was all hell broke loose.
8 years old, and to see your brother's name scrolling across screen. We don't do that anymore, thank goodness, but that had to be so difficult. And the death was hard enough, but the eventual investigation, which gave you no answers, what did that do to your family?
Well, if you can look at a family unit as like a ship, we lost the rudder, and the old man and my mother and the rest were devastated. I was not impacted until this letter came from Western Union that the two fellas showed up at the doorstep and knocked, and I happened to be there at that time too. But my parents were in a total panic, and from that point on, for the most of our lives, my family had been dysfunctionally able to not coordinate things too well in life, and so it changed our whole family dynamics.
I would imagine not being able to find answers. Feliks, you discovered by talking to the families that their loved ones were actually treated by the military much different than if they had been declared missing in action.
Yeah. If you're missing in action, if you're lost in combat, for instance, they can't find you. You get invited, your family gets invited to an event every year. The Pentagon puts on sort of Missing in Action Day. There's that flag, POW, Missing in Action. If you're active duty military and you're missing on a plane that crashed into the Gulf of Alaska, they declare you dead, your family gets the standard benefits, but after that the military turns its back. There's no monument, there's no ongoing effort to try to locate the plane, which is in 8,000 feet of water. There's no embrace, this whole promise of we leave no one behind, which is what drives that whole missing in action effort to look for people who are missing in action. Doesn't apply to something like 500 families since World War II under similar circumstances where they're missing but not in action.
This project's been very important to you. What was it about that flight?
I stumbled across it just looking through some archives, an archival newspaper from 1963. I'd never heard of this before, and I thought I knew my stuff about local aviation history. And so then to just dig into it, I put a story on our website and said, please contact me if you have any information. Greg got in touch about 6 months later, and I learned his story, learned how it tore his family apart, and I've had similar conversations over the last 8 years with dozens of other families all over the U.S., and it's like the plane was lost on June 3rd, 1963, and it's lost every single time it's not remembered or the people aren't memorialized properly. It's just, it's people who gave up their family members to the military shouldn't be treated this way.
They shouldn't, and to not have those answers, like you said, it's losing them again every time. And we should say the podcast, the first one is Greg's story first, and then there'll be more of the story, I know, in the search. And it's fascinating, and I can't wait to hear more. And I just hope that perhaps this will mean someone will say we need to then find some more answers for you and your family and for the other families.
Never
Thank
forget.
you. Thank you so much, and never forget.
Well, there's
Unsolved
one thing.
Histories. I'll get to that in just a minute,
Okay.
but Unsolved Histories, What Happened to Flight 293 debuts today, October 1st. You can listen wherever you find podcasts.